Welcome back to the channel. Let me ask you something. Why do some people speak English well even though they do not study grammar all day? Why do some learners remember words easily while others forget them again and again? The answer may surprise you. It is not a secret method. It is not a special talent. It is something very simple. Reading and listening. These two habits can completely change your English. Today, I will show you why they are so powerful, how they work together, and how they can help you speak English more naturally. Make sure you stay until the end because the last chapter may completely change the way you learn English. Chapter 1. Let me tell you a simple story. There was a learner named Adam. Adam wanted to speak English very well. He bought grammar books. He watched grammar lessons. He learned many rules. He knew about tenses. He knew about sentence structure. He could answer grammar questions in a test. But there was one problem. When someone spoke to him in English, he felt nervous. When he wanted to speak, the words did not come out easily. He knew many rules, but he could not use English naturally. For years, Adam thought he needed more grammar, so he studied even harder. He learned more rules, he memorized more explanations, but his English did not improve as much as he hoped. One day, he met a teacher. The teacher asked him a simple question. "Do you read English every day?" Adam said no. Then the teacher asked, "Do you listen to English every day?" Again, Adam said no. The teacher smiled and said, "You are trying to build a house without bricks." Adam did not understand at first. The teacher explained, "Grammar is important, but grammar alone cannot make you fluent. To speak English, your brain needs words. It needs phrases. It needs examples. It needs real English. Reading and listening give your brain those things." So Adam decided to try something different. He stopped worrying about difficult grammar for a while. Instead, he started reading short and simple stories. He also listened to easy English every day. At first, nothing seemed different. He still made mistakes. He still forgot words, but he continued. After a few weeks, he noticed something interesting. Some words started to feel familiar. Some sentences sounded natural. He did not need to think about every single word. Then after a few months, something amazing happened. He could understand more when people spoke. He could read faster. He could even speak with more confidence. The change was slow, but it was real. Many English learners are like Adam. They spend a lot of time studying rules, but very little time reading and listening. Then they wonder why English feels difficult. The truth is simple. Reading and listening are the foundation of language learning. They are the two skills that build everything else. Think about a baby. A baby does not start by studying grammar books. A baby does not learn rules about past tense or present tense. First, the baby listens. Day after day, month after month, the baby hears words and sentences. The baby hears the same sounds again and again. Slowly, the brain starts to understand. Then, after a long time, the baby says a few simple words. Later, those words become sentences. Little by little, speaking grows from listening. This is how language works. First comes input, then comes output. First comes listening and reading, then comes speaking and writing. Many learners try to do the opposite. They want to speak fluently before they have enough English inside their minds. It is like trying to take water from an empty well. There is nothing there yet, Imagine you want to bake a cake. Before you can bake, you need ingredients. You need flour, you need sugar, you need eggs. Without ingredients, there is no cake. In the same way, before you can speak English, you need language inside your brain. You need words, you need phrases, you need sentence patterns. Reading and listening give you those ingredients. Every story you read teaches you something. Every sentence you hear teaches you something. Sometimes you learn a new word. Sometimes you learn a new expression. Sometimes you learn how native speakers connect words together. Even when you do not notice it, your brain is learning. That is why reading and listening are not separate skills. They work together. They are like two doors. English enters your brain through these doors. The more you read and listen, the more English enters. The more English enters, the easier it becomes to speak and write later. I remember a learner who said, "I want to speak better English. What should I do?" I asked him how much he read and listened every day. He said, "Almost nothing." Then I understood the problem immediately. He wanted better results, but he was not giving his brain enough English to learn from. Many learners think speaking is the most important skill. Speaking is important, but speaking is often the result of good reading and good listening. Strong speakers are usually strong readers and strong listeners first. Think about your favorite language. Maybe it is your first language. How many words have you heard in your life? Millions. How many sentences have you read? Thousands and thousands. That is why speaking feels natural. Your brain has collected so much language over the years. The same thing happens with English. Every page you read is helping you. Every minute you listen is helping you. You may not see the results immediately, but your brain is growing stronger every day. Now here is a question I want you to think about. If reading and listening are so powerful, if they help build vocabulary, improve understanding, and make speaking easier, then why do so many learners ignore them? Why do some learners spend hours worrying about grammar, but only a few minutes reading a story? Why do they dream about speaking fluently, but rarely listen to English every day? In the next chapter, we will discover one of the biggest secrets of language learning. We will talk about listening and how it trains your brain in a natural way. You may be surprised to learn what happens inside your mind every time you listen to English. Keep watching, because this could completely change the way you learn English. Chapter 2. Let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever heard a song for the first time and understood almost nothing? Maybe the singer spoke too fast. Maybe the words sounded strange. Maybe all you heard was noise. But then something interesting happened. You listened to the same song again, then again, then again. After a few days, some words started to become clear. After a few weeks, you could recognize entire lines. Then one day, you found yourself singing along without even trying. What changed? The song did not change. Your ears changed. Your brain changed. This is exactly how listening works when you learn English. Many learners think they are bad at listening. They watch an English video and understand only a few words. Then they feel disappointed. They think native speakers talk too fast. They think their listening skills are weak. But the truth is often very different. The problem is usually not speed. The problem is exposure. Your brain simply needs more time with spoken English. Think about your first language. When someone speaks it, you understand almost immediately. You do not stop and translate every word. You do not think about grammar rules. You simply understand. This happens because your brain has heard that language thousands of times. You have listened to it since childhood. The sounds are familiar. The patterns are familiar. Your brain recognizes them automatically. English works in the same way. At first, English sounds fast because your brain is still learning the sounds. It is like entering a crowded room where everyone is talking at the same time. Everything feels confusing. But the more you listen, the more familiar those sounds become. Little by little, your brain begins to understand what once sounded impossible. Let me tell you about a learner named Sarah. Sarah wanted to improve her English listening. Every time she watched an English video, she felt lost. Native speakers sounded incredibly fast. She could understand a few words, but she could not follow entire sentences. One day, Sarah decided to change her approach. Instead of searching for difficult lessons, she started listening to simple English for just 10 minutes every day. Some days she listened to short stories. Some days she listened to easy conversations. Some days she listened to beginner podcasts. At first, nothing seemed to happen, but she continued. After a few weeks, she noticed something surprising. Words she could not recognize before suddenly became familiar. Sentences became easier to follow. She understood more than she did before. After a few months, listening felt much less stressful. Her confidence grew, and she no longer felt afraid every time she heard English. The reason this happens is simple. Listening is not just hearing sounds. Listening trains the brain. Every time you listen to English, your brain collects information. It learns how words sound. It learns how sentences flow. It learns which words often appear together. It learns common expressions. It learns natural speech patterns. Over time, your brain becomes faster at recognizing English. This process happens quietly. You may not notice it every day, but it is happening. Each listening session adds another small piece to the puzzle. One day, those pieces begin to connect, and understanding becomes easier. Listening also teaches things that books alone cannot teach. When you listen, you hear pronunciation, you hear rhythm, you hear stress. You hear how real people communicate. You learn how words sound when they are spoken naturally. Many learners are surprised when they discover that native speakers do not always pronounce every word clearly and separately. Words often connect together. Some sounds become softer. Some sounds seem to disappear. This is one reason native speakers sound difficult to understand at first. It is not because they are speaking too fast. It is because your ears are still learning how English sounds in real life. The more you listen, the more these patterns become familiar. Many learners make one big mistake. They believe they must understand every single word. They play an English video, miss a few words, and immediately stop. They think the lesson is too difficult. They think they are failing. But listening does not work that way. You do not need to understand everything. In fact, successful learners often understand only part of what they hear at the beginning. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. When children learn their first language, They do not understand every word either. They learn little by little. They hear the same words many times until those words become familiar. English learners can learn in the same way. Instead of focusing on every word, focus on understanding the main idea. Focus on understanding a little more today than yesterday. I remember one learner who listened to the same 5-minute story every day for 2 weeks. The first time he listened, he understood almost nothing. He wanted to quit. He thought the story was too difficult, but he decided to continue. Every day he listened again. Slowly, new words became clear. Familiar phrases appeared. Sentences that once sounded confusing started to make sense. By the end of 2 weeks, he could understand most of the story. He was amazed. He thought he needed harder lessons. What he really needed was repetition. Repetition trained his brain. Repetition helped his ears recognize the sounds. Repetition turned confusion into understanding. This is one of the biggest secrets of language learning. Successful learners are not afraid to listen to the same thing many times. They know that every listening session helps. They know that repetition builds understanding. They know that learning happens step by step. Now think about this. What if you listen to English for just 10 minutes every day? 10 minutes does not sound like much, but 10 minutes every day becomes 70 minutes every week. It becomes more than 5 hours every month. It becomes more than 60 hours every year. That is 60 hours of hearing English, 60 hours of learning pronunciation, 60 hours of learning sentence patterns, 60 hours of training your ears. Small daily habits can create huge results over time. That is why listening is one of the fastest ways to improve English. It works quietly in the background. Even when you feel like nothing is happening, your brain is learning. Every story you hear helps you. Every conversation teaches you something. Every minute matters. But now another important question appears. If listening helps you hear English, where do you learn thousands of new words and discover how sentences are built? The answer is reading. In the next chapter, we will discover why reading is one of the most powerful ways to build vocabulary, improve grammar naturally, and remember English without endless memorization. You may never look at reading the same way again. Chapter 3. Now we come to another skill that can completely change your English. We have already talked about listening and how it trains your brain to recognize spoken English. But there is another powerful habit that works together with listening. That habit is reading. Many learners believe that the best way to build vocabulary is to memorize long word lists. They spend hours writing words in notebooks. They try to memorize meanings. They review hundreds of words. But after a few days or weeks, many of those words disappear from memory. This can be frustrating. It can make learners feel like they are working hard but not making progress. If this has happened to you, do not worry. You are not alone. Many learners have the same experience. Let me tell you about a learner named Daniel. Daniel wanted a large English vocabulary. Every day he memorized new words. Sometimes he learned 20 words. Sometimes he learned 30. He filled notebook after notebook with vocabulary lists. At first he felt proud. He thought he was making great progress. But when he tried to speak or write, he could not remember many of the words he had studied. A week later, he forgot even more. He became disappointed. He wondered why learning vocabulary felt so difficult. One day, Daniel decided to try something different. Instead of memorizing long lists, he started reading simple English stories. The stories were easy. The sentences were short. The words were not difficult. At first, he thought reading was too simple to help him. But after a few weeks, he noticed something surprising. The words from the stories stayed in his memory much longer. He could remember them more easily. He could use them more naturally. For the first time, vocabulary learning started to feel easier. Why did this happen? The answer is simple. Words are easier to remember when they have meaning and context. Imagine learning the word hungry from a vocabulary list. You write the word down, you memorize the meaning. Then you move to the next word. But now imagine reading a story about a boy who comes home after school and says, "I am very hungry. I want something to eat." Suddenly, the word has a situation. It has a meaning connected to real life. Your brain understands it more naturally. Because of that, the word becomes easier to remember. This is why reading is one of the best vocabulary teachers in the world. Reading shows words inside sentences. It shows words inside conversations. It shows words inside stories. Instead of learning isolated words, you learn how words are actually used. You see what comes before them. You see what comes after them. You see how they connect to other words. This makes learning much more powerful. Think about how children learn new words in their first language. They do not memorize giant vocabulary books. They hear and read words in meaningful situations. Over time, those words become part of their vocabulary. Reading helps English learners do the same thing. Every story becomes a teacher. Every paragraph becomes a lesson. Every page introduces new language in a natural way. Another wonderful thing about reading is that it teaches grammar without making you feel like you are studying grammar. Many learners become tired when they see long grammar explanations. Rules can feel confusing. But when you read, you see grammar in action. You see real sentences. You see how verbs are used. You see how questions are formed. You see how ideas connect together. Your brain begins to recognize patterns naturally. For example, imagine reading many sentences like, "She goes to school every day." "He plays football on weekends." And, "My brother works in a hospital." After seeing these patterns again and again, your brain starts to understand them. You become familiar with the structure without needing to memorize complicated rules. Reading quietly teaches your brain how English works. This is why one simple story can sometimes teach more practical English than a long vocabulary list. A story gives you words, grammar, sentence patterns, and meaning all at the same time. It teaches multiple things together. That is one reason reading is such an efficient way to learn. Every minute of reading gives your brain valuable information. I remember a learner who read one short story every day. The stories were designed for beginners. They were not difficult. Some people told him that the stories were too easy, but he continued. Day after day he read. Month after month he read. After some time, he noticed that many English words felt familiar. He could understand articles more easily. He could watch videos with greater confidence. His vocabulary grew without endless memorization. The simple habit of reading had changed his English. Many fluent English speakers have similar stories. They did not learn thousands of words by sitting with vocabulary lists all day. They learned many of those words through reading. They read stories. They read books. They read articles. They read again and again. Each page introduced new words and reinforced old ones. Over time, their vocabulary became larger and stronger. This is one reason why reading can feel almost magical. The more you read, the more words you learn. The more words you learn, the easier reading becomes. Then easier reading helps you learn even more words. It becomes a positive cycle. Every book helps the next book feel easier. Every story prepares you for the next story. The best part is that you do not need difficult books. Many beginners make the mistake of choosing books that are too hard. Then they become frustrated and quit. It is much better to read easy material that you can enjoy and understand. Easy reading builds confidence. Easy reading builds vocabulary. Easy reading builds momentum. So if you want to improve your English, do not underestimate the power of reading. Read simple stories. Read every day if possible. Do not worry about understanding every word. Focus on enjoying the story and learning naturally. Little by little, your vocabulary will grow. Your understanding will improve. Your confidence will become stronger. But now an interesting question appears. If listening helps your ears and reading helps your eyes, what happens when you combine both together? What happens when you read and listen at the same time? The answer may surprise you. In the next chapter, we will discover the secret connection between reading and listening, and why using both together can accelerate your English progress even faster. Chapter 4. Let me tell you about a learner named Michael. Michael enjoyed listening to English, but sometimes he felt confused. He could hear many words, but he could not understand everything. One day, he listened to a short English story. The story was simple, but he still missed some parts. After listening, he decided to read the same story. Suddenly, something amazing happened. Words that sounded unclear before now made sense. Sentences that seemed difficult suddenly became easy to understand. Then he listened to the story again. This time, he understood much more than before. It felt like someone had turned on a light in a dark room. Everything became clearer. That was the day Michael discovered a powerful secret. Reading and listening are strong on their own, but together they become even more powerful. Many English learners think they must choose between reading and listening. Some focus only on books, others focus only on audio. But successful learners often use both skills together. They understand that reading helps listening, and listening helps reading. When these two habits work as a team, learning becomes easier, faster, and more natural. Think about what happens when you listen to English. You hear pronunciation, you hear rhythm, you hear how native speakers connect words together. But sometimes a word passes by so quickly that you miss it. Now think about reading. When you read, you can see every word clearly. You can stop. You can go back. You can take your time. Reading gives your eyes information that your ears might miss. At the same time, listening gives your ears information that reading cannot provide. It teaches you how English sounds in real life. When you combine these two experiences, your brain receives the same language in two different ways. Imagine seeing the word beautiful in a story. You understand its meaning because of the sentence. Then you hear someone pronounce the same word in an audio recording. Now your brain connects the spelling, the meaning, and the pronunciation. Instead of learning one piece of information, you learn three pieces at the same time. This creates a much stronger memory. The word becomes easier to remember because your brain has experienced it in multiple ways. This is why many successful English learners use books that include audio versions. They listen while they read. They hear the words and see them at the same time. This simple activity helps them improve vocabulary, pronunciation, listening, and reading together. Instead of training one skill, they train several skills at once. That is one reason their progress often seems faster. There is also something interesting that happens inside the brain when reading and listening work together. The brain loves patterns. The more often it sees and hears the same language, the stronger those patterns become. When you read a sentence and hear the same sentence, your brain creates stronger connections. Those connections help you recognize the language more quickly in the future. Words become familiar. Sentence structures become familiar. Understanding becomes easier. I remember a learner who struggled with listening for a long time. He felt discouraged because native speakers sounded too fast. Then he started using short stories with audio. First, he listened to the story. Next, he read the story carefully. Finally, he listened again. After a few weeks, he noticed a huge difference. Listening no longer felt impossible. His ears started recognizing words more quickly. His confidence grew because he could finally understand more of what he heard. The wonderful thing is that this method is very simple. You do not need expensive courses. You do not need complicated study plans. Beginners can start immediately. One easy activity is to choose a short story with audio. Listen to the story once without reading. Do not worry if you miss some words. Just try to understand the main idea. Then read the story slowly. Pay attention to the words and sentences. After that, listen again. You will often be surprised by how much more you understand. Another simple activity is to read while listening at the same time. Follow the words with your eyes while the speaker reads them aloud. This helps your brain connect spelling and pronunciation. Many beginners find that this method increases their confidence because they can see and hear the language together. You can also listen to a story several times during the week and read it a few times as well. Repetition is powerful. Every time you return to the same material, your understanding becomes stronger. Words that seem difficult begin to feel familiar. Sentences that looked confusing begin to make sense. Learning becomes less stressful because you are not constantly starting from zero. Many learners search for complicated techniques. They spend hours looking for secret methods. They download countless apps. They jump from one course to another. But sometimes the most powerful solutions are also the simplest. Reading and listening are simple habits, yet when they work together, they can create remarkable progress. Think about a bicycle. One wheel can move, but it cannot take you very far. The second wheel makes everything work smoothly. Reading and listening are like those two wheels. Each one is useful by itself. Together, they help you move forward much faster. They support each other. They strengthen each other. They make the learning journey easier. This is the breakthrough many learners never discover. They focus on only one skill and wonder why progress feels slow. But when reading and listening become daily partners, English starts to feel more natural. Vocabulary grows faster. Understanding improves faster. Confidence grows faster. Two small habits working together can often produce better results than many difficult study methods. Now, another important question appears. If reading and listening help you collect words, phrases, and sentence patterns, what happens when it is finally time to speak? How do these two skills affect your speaking ability? In the next chapter, we will discover why reading and listening are the hidden foundation behind confident English speaking, and why many fluent speakers spent years building these skills before they ever sounded natural in conversation. Chapter 5. One of the most common questions English learners ask is this: how can I speak better English? Almost every learner wants to speak more confidently. They want to speak without stopping every few seconds. They want to express their thoughts clearly. They want conversations to feel natural. But many learners become frustrated because speaking seems much harder than they expected. They study grammar. They memorize vocabulary. They practice pronunciation. Yet when it is time to speak, their minds suddenly go blank. If this has ever happened to you, you are not alone. Let me tell you about a learner named Ryan. Ryan was very shy when it came to speaking English. He wanted to have conversations, but every time someone asked him a simple question, he became nervous. He knew some English words, but he never knew what to say next. Sometimes he spent so much time thinking about the perfect sentence that the conversation moved on without him. This made him feel embarrassed. He started believing that maybe he was simply bad at speaking English. One day, Ryan met an experienced teacher. The teacher listened to his concerns and asked a simple question. How much English do you read and listen to every day? Ryan thought for a moment and realized the answer was very little. Most of his time was spent worrying about speaking. He wanted to practice speaking all day, but he was not spending much time reading stories or listening to English conversations. The teacher smiled and gave him some advice. Instead of forcing himself to speak all the time, Ryan should spend more time feeding his brain with English. He should read simple stories. He should listen to easy English every day. He should focus on receiving English before worrying so much about producing English. At first, Ryan was surprised. He thought speaking could only improve through speaking, but he trusted the advice and decided to try it. Every day, he listened to short stories and simple conversations. Every day, he read easy English books and articles. He continued this habit for weeks and then months. Something interesting started to happen. He noticed that words came to his mind more quickly. He noticed that certain phrases felt familiar. He noticed that he no longer had to build every sentence from zero. When he finally spoke English, it felt easier than before. He was still learning, but speaking no longer felt impossible. Why did this happen? The answer is very important. Speaking is like cooking. Before you can cook a meal, you need ingredients. You need vegetables. You need rice. You need spices. Without ingredients, there is nothing to cook. In the same way, before you can speak English, your brain needs ingredients. It needs words. It needs phrases. It needs sentence patterns. It needs examples of real English. Reading and listening provide those ingredients. Every time you read a story, your brain collects useful language. Every time you listen to a conversation, your brain collects useful language. Little by little, your brain stores words, expressions, and sentence structures. Then, when you need to speak, your brain can use what it has collected. Many learners do not realize this. They spend most of their time trying to speak without first giving their brains enough English to work with. It is like trying to cook dinner with an empty refrigerator. No matter how much you want to cook, you need ingredients first. Think about a child learning a first language. Children spend years listening before they become strong speakers. They hear thousands of conversations. They hear countless words and sentences. Their brains absorb language every day. Then, slowly, speaking develops naturally from all that input. English learners often want to skip this process. They want fluent speaking immediately. They want perfect conversations right away. But language does not usually work that way. Speaking grows from reading and listening. The more language your brain receives, the easier it becomes to produce language later. This explains why some learners know grammar rules but still struggle to speak. They understand the rules, but they have not received enough real English. Their brains have not collected enough examples. As a result, speaking feels difficult and unnatural. Imagine trying to write a story when you have never read a book. It would be very difficult. Reading teaches you how stories work. In the same way, listening and reading teach your brain how English works. They show you how people ask questions. They show you how people express opinions. They show you how people tell stories and share ideas. Over time, your brain begins to recognize these patterns. You stop creating every sentence from scratch. Instead, you start using patterns that already exist in your memory. This makes speaking faster and easier. I remember a learner who felt stuck for years. He practiced speaking every chance he got, but progress was slow. Then he made one important change. He started reading simple English stories every day and listening to English podcasts designed for learners. 6 months later, he noticed a dramatic difference. He could speak more naturally. He could find words more easily. Conversations felt less stressful. What changed? He finally gave his brain enough English input. This realization creates a powerful moment for many learners. They suddenly understand why speaking has been so difficult. The problem is not always a lack of speaking practice. Sometimes the real problem is a lack of reading and listening. The brain cannot produce language that it has never received. That is why reading and listening are not separate from speaking. They are the foundation of speaking. They prepare your mind. They fill your memory with useful language. They help you develop a natural feeling for English. The good news is that you do not need to wait until you are perfect. You can continue speaking while also reading and listening every day. The more English you receive, the more confident you become. The more confident you become, the easier speaking feels. So the next time you worry about speaking, remember this simple idea. Before you can take English out, you must first put English in. Reading and listening are how you do that. They are the fuel that powers your speaking ability. Now you may be wondering how to use these ideas in daily life. How much should you read? How much should you listen? What can a busy learner do every day without feeling overwhelmed? In the next chapter, we will look at simple daily habits that anyone can follow. These habits are easy, practical, and powerful, and they can help you make steady progress even if you only have a few minutes each day. Chapter 6. By now, you understand why reading and listening are so important. But many learners still have one big question. They say, This sounds great, but I am busy. I do not have enough time to study English every day. If you have ever felt this way, I want to tell you a story. There was a learner named Kevin. Kevin worked long hours. He had family responsibilities. He had many things to do every day. Whenever someone told him to improve his English, he always gave the same answer: I do not have time. He believed that successful learners studied for hours every day. He believed that if he could not study for 2 or 3 hours, there was no point in trying. One day, he decided to do a simple experiment. Instead of looking for large blocks of study time, he promised himself just 15 minutes a day. That was all. 15 minutes. 5 minutes of listening in the morning, 5 minutes of reading in the evening, 5 minutes reviewing something he enjoyed. It seemed too small to matter, but he continued. 1 week became 1 month. 1 month became 3 months. After several months, Kevin noticed something surprising. He could understand more English videos. He knew more vocabulary. Reading felt easier. Listening felt easier. Most importantly, he felt more confident. The 15 minutes that once seemed insignificant had completely changed his English. This story teaches an important lesson. Consistency matters more than intensity. Many learners study very hard for one day and then do nothing for the next week. Others study for a few days and then stop completely. Progress becomes slow because their learning is not consistent. A small habit repeated every day is often more powerful than a large effort repeated once in a while. Think about exercise. Going to the gym for 5 hours one day will not make you healthy, but exercising a little every day can transform your body over time. Language learning works in the same way. Small daily habits create big results. The good news is that these habits are simple. You do not need expensive courses. You do not need complicated schedules. You only need a few minutes and a willingness to continue. The first habit is choosing easy material. This is very important. Many beginners make the mistake of selecting books, podcasts, or videos that are far too difficult. Then they become frustrated because they understand very little. Learning should feel challenging, but it should not feel impossible. Choose simple stories. Choose beginner podcasts. Choose videos designed for learners. When the material is easy enough, learning becomes enjoyable. I often tell learners to start with stories they can mostly understand. If you understand most of the story, your brain can learn naturally from context. You do not have to stop every few seconds to look up words. You can focus on enjoying the story while still learning. Another helpful habit is listening during activities you already do every day. For example, listen while walking. Listen while traveling. Listen while doing simple household tasks. You do not always need to sit at a desk. Many learners improve their listening simply by using moments that would otherwise be wasted. 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there may not seem important, but those minutes add up quickly. Reading before sleeping is another powerful habit. Instead of spending a few minutes scrolling through random content on your phone, try reading a short English story. It does not need to be long. Even 1 or 2 pages can help. Reading before bed gives your brain another chance to interact with English. Over time, this small habit can build a strong reading routine. Another useful habit is reviewing your favorite stories more than once. Many learners believe they must always read something new, but repetition is one of the most effective learning tools. When you read the same story again, you notice details you missed before. Words become more familiar. Sentences become easier to understand. Confidence grows because the material feels comfortable. The same idea applies to listening. If you find a short audio story that you enjoy, listen to it several times throughout the week. The first time, you may understand only part of it. The second time, you understand more. The third time, even more. This process helps train your ears and strengthen your memory. Let me give you a simple daily routine for beginners. In the morning, listen to 5 minutes of easy English. During the day, listen again while walking or traveling if possible. In the evening, read a short story for 5 or 10 minutes. Before sleeping, review a few words or read part of your favorite story again. This routine does not require hours of study, but it creates daily contact with English. Some learners worry that such small actions are not enough. But remember Kevin's story. 15 minutes a day changed his English. The secret was not the amount of time. The secret was consistency. He kept going when others stopped. He continued when progress felt slow. Day after day, he gave his brain more English. Imagine two learners. One studies for 3 hours on Sunday and then does nothing for the rest of the week. The other studies for 15 minutes every day. At the end of the year, who do you think will make more progress? In many cases, it is the learner who practiced every day. Daily exposure keeps the brain connected to the language. It keeps learning active. This should be exciting because it means improving your English is possible no matter how busy you are. You do not need a perfect schedule. You do not need endless free time. You only need small daily actions repeated consistently. Every story you read is a step forward. Every minute you listen is a step forward. Every review session is a step forward. These steps may seem small today, but together they create something powerful. Months from now, you could be understanding more conversations, reading more confidently, and speaking more naturally. The journey begins with simple habits. The journey begins with a few minutes each day. And now we arrive at the most important part of this lesson. What kind of future can these habits create? What happens when someone continues reading and listening for months and even years? In the next chapter, we will bring everything together and look at the incredible transformation that becomes possible when reading and listening become part of your daily life. Chapter 7. Before we finish this lesson, I want to tell you one final story. It is a story that many English learners can relate to. There was a learner named James. When he first started learning English, everything felt difficult. He could not understand movies. He could not follow conversations. Even simple stories seemed confusing. When he listened to native speakers, the words sounded too fast. When he opened a book, he found so many unfamiliar words that he wanted to quit. Many times, he wondered if he would ever become good at English. But James made one important decision. Instead of searching for shortcuts, he focused on two simple habits. He started reading a little every day. He started listening a little every day. Some days he was motivated. Some days he was tired. Some days he felt like he was improving, other days he felt stuck. But no matter how he felt, he continued. At first, the changes were very small. He learned a few new words. He understood a few more sentences. He recognized phrases that he had heard before. Nothing seemed dramatic. But week after week, month after month, those small improvements began to grow. One day, he watched a video and realized he understood most of it. Another day, he finished an English story without constantly checking a dictionary. Later, he found himself having a simple conversation in English. For the first time, he felt comfortable instead of afraid. The learner who once understood almost nothing was now enjoying books, videos, conversations, and real communication. What changed? The answer was not a secret method. The answer was not a special talent. The answer was daily reading and daily listening. Throughout this lesson, we have discovered something very important. Reading and listening are not just study activities. They are tools that slowly transform your English. They help you build vocabulary naturally. They help you understand grammar through real examples. They train your ears to recognize spoken English. They prepare your mind for speaking. They make communication easier and more natural. Think about everything we have learned. Listening helps your brain recognize sounds, pronunciation, rhythm, and real speech. Reading helps you learn vocabulary, sentence patterns, and grammar in context. Together, these skills create a strong foundation for speaking and writing. They work together like two teammates helping you move forward. Many learners focus only on results. They want to speak fluently right away. They want to understand everything immediately. But language learning is often quieter than that. Improvement happens in small moments. A word you suddenly recognize, a sentence you understand without translating, a conversation that feels easier than before. These moments may seem small, but they are signs of real progress. That is why reading and listening are so powerful. They do not only change what you know, they change who you become as an English speaker. Every story you read adds something to your vocabulary. Every audio lesson strengthens your listening skills. Every page and every minute of listening help build a stronger version of you. Imagine your future if you continue these habits. Imagine picking up an English book and reading it with confidence. Imagine watching videos and understanding the main ideas without feeling lost. Imagine having conversations without constantly searching for words. Imagine enjoying English instead of fearing it. That future is possible. It may not happen tomorrow. It may not happen next week. But it can happen if you continue taking small steps every day. Too many learners quit because they expect instant results. They plant a seed and then become disappointed because the tree does not appear the next morning. But language learning is like growing a tree. First, the roots grow underground where nobody can see them. Then, little by little, the tree becomes stronger. Reading and listening are building those roots every day. Even when you cannot see the progress, growth is happening. I want you to remember something very important. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to understand every word. You do not need to study for hours every day. You only need to keep moving forward. A few pages, a few minutes of listening, a little progress every day. 1 year from now, you could be a completely different English learner. The person who struggles today could become the person who understands stories, enjoys conversations, and speaks with confidence. That transformation starts with simple, daily actions. So do not underestimate the power of one page. Do not underestimate the power of one story. Do not underestimate the power of one listening session. These small actions may seem ordinary today, but they have the power to create extraordinary results over time. As you leave this lesson, I want you to picture a future where English is no longer scary. A future where hearing English does not make you nervous. A future where reading feels enjoyable. A future where understanding becomes natural. A future where you can communicate your thoughts and ideas with confidence. That future is not built in a single day. It is built one page at a time. It is built one listening session at a time. It is built one small habit at a time. And the best part is that you can start today. Not next week, not next month, today. Even if you only have 5 minutes, read one page, listen to one short story, take one small step forward. Because one small step today can become a completely different future tomorrow. If you enjoyed this lesson and learned something new today, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new English lesson. And now, I want to hear from you. Which do you enjoy more, reading or listening? Tell me in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Keep learning every day. Keep believing in yourself. And I will see you in the next video.